Hard and you aiming for the seven figures. Hear from the experts who know how to deliver success stories, plenty advice. Time for you to rise. REI Tribe, yeah. Real estate agents to investors, all my entrepreneurs. Time for you to check this. Johan Direct, he's getting it started, man. From running businesses to digital marketing. Hey, REI Tribe, REI Tribe. Let's go.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to this new episode of the REI Tribe podcast. We're back here in the studio today with my guest, Henry. So, man, glad to have you here.
Yeah, man. Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it. Looking forward to it.
For sure. So, Henry does different things, from running real estate events here in Miami to running a very successful fix and flip and wholesaling business. So, we have a lot of things to talk about today, but first, man, I'd like to just go back on your journey. Can you explain to us a little bit more how you got started in real estate?
I got my real estate license right out of high school just because, my parents had their real estate license. It was like a good thing to do. I heard the money was easy and good. So I got my real estate license, but I never operated. I was working for my parents' valet parking business at the time. Right after college, I get a job at a beer company called Chihuahua. I was working there for a year, and as soon as I started working for Chihuahua, I got invited to a fix and flip event. I got a cold call. Somebody, they hit me up. They're like, "Hey, we need a realtor at this fix and flip event. You're a local realtor. I think it'd be great." So I'm like, "Okay, perfect. Sounds like a scam, but I'm gonna go." So I go out there, and that weekend opened up my eyes to, wow, there really is a lot of money to be made in real estate, more so than just helping a friend or to do a rental once a year. So I'm working for the beer company. I already have my license. I go to that event. That was a Saturday, Sunday.
How long does it took between the time you got licensed for the first time and the time that you went to this seminar and open your eyes on possibilities?
I want to say I got licensed in 2011, right out of high school. And 2018, I opened the fix and flip business.
Okay.
During those 7 years, I might have done, a couple sales here and there for friends and family, a couple rentals, but not much. I used real estate as a side hustle during those years. So I get invited to the seminar. It opens up my eyes to the possibilities of fix and flip and the amount of money that you can make there. And that was a Saturday, Sunday. On Monday, I had decided I'm going to start flipping houses. But the first thing you need to flip houses is money. So I took my phone out and I started going through my contacts. And I put a little star next to everyone that I thought had enough money to lend me for a flip. I make my list, and that same Monday, I start calling.
Is it something that they teach you at the seminar that you went to? Did they say hey, you need to go through, your warm network first to find, private capital? You need to go eat your family and friends in order to start this first one? Or is it something that you just figure out on your own?
So the seminar, I was actually invited for free because they needed a realtor to open the lock boxes. Oh. You legally need a realtor to open the lock boxes. So I wasn't able to attend the whole seminar. I was just able to attend the bus portion, which is where we're driving to 3 flips on Saturday, 3 flips on Sunday. And I overheard what they were talking about. But I wasn't really invited to the whole course. I didn't get all the material. I just took bits and pieces of what they were saying, and I was like, okay, this makes sense.
So were those guys opening the door to their own fix and flip, or was it some random properties?
Random properties on the MLS, which is why, because they were from Texas.
Oh, okay.
So they do the event here in Miami, and they need local realtors because they have a bus full of 50 students. Wow. And the local realtor is the one that has a license that could open the lockbox, so that they don't get into legal problems.
All right. And so just for me to understand a little bit more, is it houses already fixed, already on the market, retail, or was it houses in very bad condition and the goal was to kind of explain to people the possibility of renovating this property and flipping it on the market?
Right. It was houses that were in distressed condition, and we'd walk the house, and the coach or the teacher, whomever, he'd explain, okay, so this is the kitchen. We're going to spend $7,000 in the kitchen. We're going to do vanity, whatever, in the bathroom. and he'd break down that whole process. We also had a printout with the comps in the area, so he'd teach you how to run the comps while you're on the bus.
Okay. That's
So
interesting. Going back to this journey of like you decide you want to get into fix and flip, that's a good way to go. You scroll down through your contact in your phone, and then what happened from there?
I started making calls. And most of the feedback was, "Man, you don't know what you're doing. You're gonna lose money. That only works on HGTV. It's not that easy. I have a lot of friends that lost a lot of money flipping houses." So I'm like, "Okay, cool. Yeah, thanks. On to the next. Until my partner, till today, answers the phone, and he says, "Okay, I'm interested. Let's meet about it more formally." Perfect, tomorrow. So Monday, I start calling everybody. I get a yes. Tuesday, I meet with his potential investor, who's still my partner to this day. And I didn't show up to the meeting to ask for money. I showed up to the meeting to present an opportunity to invest in my next business venture, right? I showed case studies by going on the MLS, finding properties that were already flipped, and working it backwards, finding out how much they bought it for, using before and after pictures to discuss how much I thought they spent in rehab. Some very unrealistic numbers because I wasn't very experienced at the time. But I presented a whole business plan with case studies.
So I think that's a nugget here for the audience, because you didn't came to this partner right asking for money. You were actually providing an opportunity, showing them that there was an opportunity available in investing with you, and you already did your own work to show that you knew what you were doing, right?
So the other day I'm talking to my friend, and he asked me, he's like, "Henry, why isn't everybody in real estate? This is such an amazing industry. Why isn't everybody in real estate?" The only solution I could come up with is the misconception that there's a huge barrier of entry to get into this space. People think you can't get into real estate if you don't have money, and that's wrong. I had no money when I started, because people think that you have to go ask people for money. You don't. You have to frame it differently, and you're trying to achieve the same thing, which is get somebody to lend you money.
Mm-hmm.
But the framework makes it, very different in the investor's eyes. And I think that's something that I did very well at the beginning. Maybe I didn't do it 100% intentionally, but it worked out, After that meeting, the investor basically told me, "I'm interested. However, this doesn't work if we don't control the rehab. That's the big variable. So who's going to do the rehab?" And I said, "I have the guys." "No, perfect. I'll set up a meeting." He's like, "Perfect. Let's meet with them." Not only did we have to meet with them, but he also, one of his requests was that the contractors had a skin in the game, that the contractors owned a part of the company, that the contractors put money to start the company, so that if we lost money on a flip, it would hurt them as well.
Too, yeah.
And that's what we did. I met with him on Tuesday. On Thursday, I met with the contractors who were friends at the time. I mean, now these two guys are like my brothers. But yeah, we set the meeting up for Thursday, and I think the LLC was open the following week.
So you already knew the contractor. It was already someone that you had in your network.
Yeah, it was my wife's best friend's husband, who I had met him a couple times. We weren't like, super close at that point in time. I mean, now we are.
Or did you figure out that he was the right guy? Like, did you already seen his work? You knew that he was doing something similar, or was it just like, oh shit, I need a contractor, and this guy is a GC. Let's go.
I mean, to be honest with you, there was a very short list of contractors to call. I got lucky that they were the right guys, and honestly, the partnership between the three parties, who are the contractor, the money guy, and myself, has been amazing since day one.
For sure, because I mean, it's a big gamble on both sides, because on you, of course, you need a reliable partner. So
right.
I understand your money partner was like, oh, I want everybody to have some skin in the game.
Mm-hmm.
But I imagine for the GC, he was betting on someone with no experience flipping houses. So it was also like a risk on his side.
Yeah, to be honest, I don't know how they put so much confidence in me right off the bat, but I guess I was pretty convincing with my arguments. So yeah, it worked out. We started off, right off the bat. I put the puzzle pieces together really quickly. I think that was, I mean, right place, right time. You could say luck, whatever, but that was the key to
So
the
how did
catapulting.
you like? You go to this seminar, you see those guys like pitching it. You're like, oh, there's an opportunity. Being a real estate agent might not be the only way to make money in real estate.
Hmm.
Fix and flip seem to be interesting. From there, like, how do you find your first flip? Like, where did you find this deal? Was it on the market, off market? Like,
A lot of brain damage to find that first flip. So we were going 100% off the MLS. I didn't understand wholesaling. I didn't understand buying deals off market. So I want to say it was the first 5 months. My partner and I would wake up would leave the house every morning, 7 a.m. He'd pick me up in my apartment, and we'd go see at least 3 properties every single morning, Monday through Friday. Even if the properties didn't make sense, we'd go see 3 properties. Our contractors would meet us at these properties. So we're seeing 15 properties a week, sending 15 offers a week at ridiculous prices. Some properties we wouldn't like, so we wouldn't send offers on. But we're doing all this like crazy, inefficient, legwork. But it taught us a lot, right? So everything was MLS, MLS, MLS. I think we got our first deal like 4 or 5 months into it off the MLS. Second deal also off the MLS. And then I met a guy called Ben. He runs a wholesale company down in Miami. And I didn't understand the wholesaling part of it, but he had put a property in Boca under contract, and he kind of explained to me what the wholesaling was. I played it off like I was like this big buyer because I already had 2 properties under contract, and I'm a professional at this point. So I'm talking a big game here, trying to get him to do business with me. And that was the first deal I bought from a wholesaler. Once I bought that deal from a wholesaler, my eyes opened up to, oh wow, there's this whole other way to get properties from wholesalers. And that's when I started to actively like hunt these wholesalers down so that I could get on their list and start buying from them as well.
don't you think that's interesting that, when people want to get started in real estate, the first thing that we think about is getting licensed, becoming a real estate agent. But in reality, even though you go through 60 hours of training and everything to get licensed, you don't know anything about real estate. You don't know anything about the possibilities of doing fix and flip. They don't teach you about wholesaling, for example. It's kind of a gray area, but they don't really tell you about any of that. So it's really, I have this tendency to say that getting licensed, the whole 60 hours, is basically just telling you what to do not to get sued. That's basically the only
That
thing that there is.
unfortunately, I agree with you 100%. I'll tell you what, I was a realtor for how long was it? Like 6 years before I started fix and flipping. I learned how to run comps when I started my fix and flip business.
Yeah.
And I had already sold millions of dollars worth of real estate. Like I had done some big transactions, and it was only a few a year, but I was doing transactions and I had no idea what I was doing.
It's insane, right? And wholesaling, I mean, from what I understand, you discovered it pretty early in your journey, but for me, it took me several years, man. I've been flipping for probably 5 or 6 years before I noticed one day, oh, what is this line that I see on my ad?
Assignment
Like,
fee,
there's always this,
yeah.
God damn it, this guy is making 30K on a deal where I've been holding on it for 6 months and I'm probably making the same thing. Like, what is this wholesaling thing? And so yeah, I think that's one of the things that I wish, real estate school, when agent get licensed, will teach more about, the different exit strategy that you can have in real estate, and maybe even a little bit of sales and marketing, because I think that's really the missing component for a real estate agent to really, kickstart their journey and really become successful.
Yeah, I agree. I think the real estate test is, I mean, whatever. You don't learn anything, to be honest with you. But it's interesting you say the wholesaling thing, because it's crazy that this is like this dark side of the moon. Nobody understands it. That's how I took it at first. I had no idea what it was until I started like looking into it. YouTube University, everything. And the same exact story that you just mentioned was what triggered me into getting into wholesaling. Is I saw somebody making $30,000 on a HUD, and I thought, wow, this guy's going to make the same amount as me but he has no risk. He didn't do anything. All he did was find the property. Obviously, after opening up my wholesale company, I now understand. Yeah, I now understand. But that's, I got that like shiny object syndrome and and ran to wholesaling, and that's we started our wholesaling business in 2020.
So how long did it took like between the time you started to flip your first property to now like branching out into wholesaling? Like, was it several years later, or was it a matter of a few months?
So 2018, I believe it was June, we opened up SoFlo Flippers. That's the fix and flip entity. Spinned our wheels. We finally got a deal under contract, one or two in 2018, but we didn't complete any flips that year. 2019, we completed 3 flips. Okay. Some that we dragged on from 2018 that we had to put under contract towards the end of the year, and then one or two more. We did 3 flips total that year, and we bought a couple that dragged into 2020. So 2019, we kind of took it slow, but we figured it out. We're like, okay, cool, this flipping thing works. Let's scale it. Let's do this flipping thing. But we were having such a hard time finding deals because nobody knew who I was. I didn't know any wholesalers. Like I was a nobody in the industry. I was still selling beer, and doing these flips as a part-time. So 2020, we decided, all right, let's learn more about this wholesaling thing, because if we do this right, we're going to be able to provide enough deals for SoFlo Flippers that I never have to buy from another wholesaler again. I never have to buy off the MLS again. It's going to be super easy.
So 2020, were you buying your flips from wholesaler, or was it still making offer on the MLS like at your beginning in 2018?
More wholesalers than MLS, but both. We were still checking the MLS. And yeah, January 2020, I hired a mentor. First thing I did when we went into the fix and flip, into the wholesaling space. We hired a mentor and we hit the ground running, hired cold callers right away, built a little team. Luckily, we had some means because we had already done some successful flips. And I want to say Grand Offer, which is my wholesaling business, started around March is really when we started, 2020.
So would you say that, going straight into hiring a coach when you started your wholesale business, do you think it's the reason why you were able to scale that fast is because basically you had someone showing you the ways, like basically giving you the blueprint to start a wholesale company, as opposed to, some people like myself who took like the long way of, YouTube University and trials and error and everything. Do you think it's something that you would recommend to someone today getting started, find a mentor first, instead of trying to do it on your own and reinventing the wheel?
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. And I can't stress it enough. I wish I would have done the same in my fix and flip business, because all I got was those 2 days of some real crash course stuff, and I didn't invest into that education anymore. But in the wholesale, I did hire a mentor. I did a whole mentorship program. I went to events, and wow, what a difference. What a difference. I'll tell you, it cut off years from my learning curve. It was a big upfront investment, but totally worth it. I can't even tell you how many times being able to pick up the phone and calling that person, my mentors at the time, saved me money, or saved me from a situation.
And so you started this wholesale company to provide deals for your own flipping business, or was it like, it seemed like an interesting business model, let's have like another source of income, let's diversify? What was the main goal when you got started?
Yeah, so diversification did not cross our mind. It was, we're only gonna wholesale open this business so that we could flip all the deals. You quickly learn, as a successful flipper, you need to have a strict buy box. You need to stick to a certain product. Some numbers aren't going to work for you. That'll work for others. And there's a lot of, you can't take down every deal. So we learned that quickly, and we did learn, okay, we also need to get the disposition side of it, because we're not going to be able to take down every deal. So that thought was scratched off pretty quickly, that we needed Grand Offer, our wholesale business, to be successful on its own and not 100% reliant on our fix and flip operation.
So you could basically cherry pick the deal that fit your flipping model, and then the rest of it you would just
wholesale out
to someone else.
And that's the goal, and that's still what we do to this day. Is If SoFlo Flippers, my flipping company, likes the deal, we'll wholesale it to the flipping company, and the flipping
And
company.
so, would you say it changed something financially for your company? Because I had like a similar background as you. Like I started flipping houses before actually getting into wholesaling, and one of the main thing for me was the cash conversion cycle. You know, it takes 6 months to
Mm-hmm.
8 months to turn a flip, while a wholesale deal is really a matter of 90 days. So, as a business standpoint, it was like completely different on a cash flow perspective. Uh, Once we started to implement wholesaling as well.
I mean, yeah, that's a very attractive part of wholesaling, and that's why I think both companies complement each other pretty well. Even though I still take down my biggest deals, so most of the time you still have that problem that you're tying up your capital into these projects 5 6 months at a time. But that problem, I only really experienced it the first year.
Mm-hmm.
After that, when you get into a rhythm and you're selling even if you're selling just 2 flips a month, there's always money rotating. So it kind of becomes more predictable, the business. And then when you become this machine, well, I mean, obviously there's flippers that do a lot more volume, but when you're doing 25 properties at a time, which is kind of where we're at, there's always closings.
For sure.
So
So let me ask you on the financing side, because I understand that you had your money partner on the first deal. How does it work to this day? Like, is it still the same money partner providing the capital? Did you have to use private money or hard money lender, or do you have, I don't know, like a line of credit that you use to fund your flips?
So the first couple flips, we bought them all cash with the private money lenders cash. We didn't understand the value of using hard money and being able to scale because of the hard money. So now we buy everything, almost everything, with hard money. I've raised capital since then. Now I have more capital available to me than deals. That comes with the territory. Because as people start, you start putting your name out there, people start calling you to lend you money,
Yeah,
to be
sure.
honest. So I receive a lot of exterior, like private lenders lend me. I have different ways of accepting the money, so I'll put them on a 1 year pay promissory note where I give them a fixed interest every single month, whether or not I'm using it. I have people who partner up with me on a per deal basis, and they'll fund 100% of it and take equity in the deal. I also have, more private money guys that'll lend me per flip.
So
So
when you say that you're using hard money lender on most of your flips, are you doing like a capital stack with a private money
yeah,
lender bringing the down payment and then the hard money lender funding like 70%, let's say, of the deal?
that's exactly it. Yeah. So I use private money to put the down payment for the hard money. And I have a bunch of investors that they're like, hey, I'm cool with a 7 8% return annually. Just
Sure. I mean,
here's my
I
money.
can see the value. There is predictability in
Hmm.
that, knowing that I'm going to get this exact return on my money. It doesn't matter
Correct.
what happens. Sure, we could invest in real estate, but then you always have maintenance and vacancy and everything.
Right.
So it's way more predictable. So
Yeah. I mean, you don't get appreciation, you don't get depreciation, you don't get a bunch of benefits. But if it's, these are people that have a lot of trust in me and a lot of trust in the company. And hey, they receive either a Zelle, a check, or a transfer the first of the month, no matter what happens. You lend me $300,000, I'm paying you 8% of that annualized. Every single month, you're getting your payout.
for
So
sure. So let me ask you, man. It's always very difficult to when you're doing fix and flip to build a relationship with the bank. Like we've been talking about our money lender, which is
mhm.
obviously expensive. Have you been able with a track record to go to see like regular banks and get line of credit or this kind of thing, or is it still something that is very difficult to obtain to this day?
Yeah, banks. I don't know what it is, but they frown upon fix and flip. They don't like it. They don't like the business at all. Unfortunately, we have not been able to secure big lines of credits. I haven't had any luck with that. I don't know if there's other ways around it, but I haven't had any luck with lines of credit with our big banks like Chase or
It's
anything like
very
that.
complicated. Yeah.
Hmm.
You're doing wall setting, you're doing fix and flip. Uh, do you think it's something that people should keep in mind? Because I mean, we both know people in the industry being very like close-minded sometimes of, oh, I'm a wholesaler and that's the only thing that I'm going to do, or I'm doing fix and flip and I won't do anything else. Where I think it's an exit strategy really, and there is different way.
Mhm.
Once you find the deal, once you develop the skill set of being able to find off-market properties, then you have different ways to monetize on these deals. So what's your take on that?
I mean, I see the value in the vertical integration of both businesses. I think I don't know how to put a price on it because, for a fact, the 10 biggest deals I've ever done in my life have all come from direct to seller, right? If there's another party involved, whether that be a realtor, a wholesaler, anything, if there's any other party involved, your margin is being squeezed,
Sure.
right? So going direct to the source is always going to end up, maybe not always, but it'll give you more possibilities to get these huge pops where you hear people say, I made $200,000 on a flip when you sold it for 400K. That happens when you go direct to seller and you're solving these crazy problems for the sellers. So I think fix and flippers don't like that creative marketing sales side of it. And I get that. Same way that wholesalers don't like the being organized, the whole cash conversion cycle being super slow, and putting all your eggs in one basket per se. If you're putting, I don't know, 70K into a deal.
Yeah.
So I see why they're not attractive, but if you could be flexible and you could integrate both, I think you're setting yourself up for success.
Absolutely. What's your opinion on all those creative techniques that we have now, from doing sub to zero finance and even innovation? We hear a lot about innovation recently. Yeah, what's your opinion on that?
It's more important than ever due to the current market cycle that we're in. Back in last year, 2022 and the end of 2021, all 2021, we were living a video game. Like it was crazy. You could put anything under contract and anything would sell. You'd have these hedge funds picking up properties at 90%, 95% even. Open Door grossly overpaying. I sold a bunch of properties to Open Door.
Everybody was looking very small back then, right?
Yeah, so it was easy. The cash offer went a very long way.
Yeah.
That's not the case anymore. The dispo side has gotten a little bit tighter because hedge funds are pulling out. In Florida, we have a big problem with insurance companies, which is why these institutional buyers they're not messing with Florida too much. Open Doors no longer paying over market value for properties after losing a couple $1 billion. I guess they learned something. So yeah, it's gotten tighter on that side. However, on our end, the goal is still to convert at all costs because we're paying for that lead.
Yeah.
Whether we convert it, we make any kind of money or not, it still costs me money to put that lead in my CRM and the wholesale business. So if I could do something creative with it, if I could keep it as a rental, if I could, I don't know, novate it, that's a big one. People underestimate the power of getting a property, slapping an AC on it, get your seller to sign a cash advance and putting it on the market, could go a very long way. Your seller's going to walk away with more money. You're going to make a spread. Everybody's happy. So I think now is more important than ever to educate yourself in all these different strategies so that you could offer these solutions to the sellers. Because right now, people, it's not as easy as just pick up a property for 50 cents on the dollar.
Absolutely. So going back on this market kind of change that we experienced in the last 6 months, you always been really focused on Florida. You didn't went this route of expanding nationwide and doing this nationwide wholesaling business. You've always been very focused on a few markets here in Florida. Do you think it's something today that allows you to keep going when a lot of wholesaling companies have been just going out of business? Because I feel like in the last 2 years, everybody was not really focused on nurturing their buyer and nurturing their local reputation. They're just like, hey, we're just going to send an email blast and it's going to sell anyway.
Right. I mean, I don't know if it's necessarily given me a huge advantage against the competitors, but the reason why I stay in Florida, and this is probably the sole reason, is so that I could take advantage of the deal more than one way. It would be a lot harder for me to fix and flip in North Carolina per se, where I don't have a crew. I don't know anybody. I don't have any connections. Where here in Florida, I've been focusing on that more and more as I progress in my career, is making a name for myself, making a reputation for myself locally, and creating these relationships, which not only bring me deals, but they allow me to exit deals more creatively. I like being able to have more control by understanding the market and knowing people in the market. So
Absolutely.
I
Makes
also,
sense.
yeah, it's you want to put something under contract. If it's in Florida, I know I could keep it as a rental. I could fix and flip it. I could wholesale it, etc. Where elsewhere I would be tied to maybe just one exit strategy.
For sure. Talking about the rental, you mentioned rentals a few times. Is it something that is part of your plan, um, as you see all those off-market opportunities coming your way, being able to cherry pick some rentals and keep them to build this long-term wealth?
So a big thing for me, like my why, right, is I want to leave a legacy. I want to leave a legacy for my kids. That why changed very abruptly about less than 2 years ago when I had my firstborn kid, and it went from okay, cool, I want to drive a Ferrari. That was probably my why. If you would have asked me 2.5 years ago, I want to have a big house. I want to, afford all these crazy things. To who am I going to be when I'm no longer here to my family, right? And that's where the legacy comes in. I believe the best way to leave a legacy behind is through real estate, through rental properties more specifically. Having said that, I'm very building a single family rental portfolio in such an expensive state like Florida, where taxes are crazy, insurance is crazy, properties do not cash flow, and a $300,000 property is a piece of nothing in the hood. It's painfully hard, slow, and cash intensive to scale a single family rental portfolio. So I have a couple rentals. I have some personal rentals, which are already like assigned for my kids. And in the company, we have, I think, 8 single families right now. It's not anything to write home about. So we've decided we're going to get into the multifamily space. It's just, I think it's more scalable. It's easier to control than having a bunch of single families spread out everywhere. And right now, I actually just signed up for a mentorship beginning of the year with Jake and Gino. So I'm educating myself on the multifamily space, and I want to start playing in the smaller side of things. Maybe 30 to 60 doors, something big enough for it to be professionally managed and not be a burden, but also small enough to where I could take it down by myself. By myself, I mean with my crew, so that I don't have to syndicate it. Right? People
I
tell
see.
you the best thing to do is get into a 200 unit right away and do a syndication. I want to control it.
That's very interesting because I had this debate a few times because I've been part too of mentorship about like commercial real estate and syndication and all of that, and people are really like keen into this model of going right after the big deal and getting a small part of the pie. And honestly, I don't know if it's if it comes with maturity or having kids and like your goal change over time, but I can relate to that. Your objective kind of change. You would have asked me that a few years ago, 10 years ago, I would have been like, yeah, sure, I want to have like 1,000 units in different states. Now I'm more like, I prefer to own like a few buildings and own them like fully, like
Yeah.
without having to deal with all those investors. I can totally relate to that. But going back to the single family side, it's something that I experienced firsthand. Like I tried over the years to come back to Florida and buy some rentals here, and it hasn't been a successful experience because real estate is very expensive.
Mm-hmm.
And usually, like if you look at the United States in general, the Midwest is going to be for cash flow, the Southeast is going to be for appreciation, and Florida unfortunately is an appreciation market, fortunately or unfortunately, it depends like on what side you're looking at, but it's very hard to cash flow on single family houses here.
So the fact that it's an appreciation market is cool, but it's so capital intensive, and my capital produces so much actively invested in my wholesale business or my fix and flip business that I can't hold myself to bury a bunch of money into single family rentals. And the opportunity cost of not having that money invested actively, it just doesn't make sense for me where I'm at right now, which is why I want to move into this multifamily space. So now the deal, because that's where the legacy's at, right? I could leave my kids a very successful fix and flip business, a very successful wholesale business, and they could run each one of them to the ground within 6 months. If I leave you a portfolio of multifamily buildings that are professionally managed,
it is very hard to destroy.
correct.
I came to the same conclusion a few years ago. I was looking at wholesaling company. It has no real value. It's not going to be like this office building that
Hmm.
you can sell it, you can rent it, you have different strategies. A wholesale business by itself, I don't think I ever experienced a wholesale company being sold. You don't really have any multiple because it's really dependent really on the business owner. As soon as you step out, like the company can go to the ground in
Right.
like 2 months, as you say. So in fix and flip, it's a little bit of the same thing. The value is really in your project. Once you wrap up your project, well, the company by
There's no more
itself
value.
doesn't have any value. So I think that's really the value in what we're doing in this industry is to be able to once again cherry pick the best deal
Correct.
and grow this portfolio because 15, 20 years from now, when you look back at your career, it's really what is going to stay. It's those rentals that you've been accumulating.
So yeah, I agree with you 100%, and that's why the business that I'm in right now, which is the wholesale and the fix and flip, it's great. It's money, it's a lot of money and it's quick money, but you have to use this isn't the end goal. You use this capital to invest it so that you could get into the bigger projects, like
For sure.
the deals that I'm underwriting right now. I was underwriting them this morning. 225 units in Jacksonville, a 20 unit in Fort Pierce. These are the kind of things that you can't get into right away unless you stumble upon a couple $1,000,000. But now that you've made the capital with the wholesaling business and the fix and flip, now you get into these bigger, small multifamilies,
For
right?
sure. And the scale too, because once you get into commercial real estate, you have different things. First of all, like the way you're going to force appreciation on a commercial building is completely different than residential. On residential, even though like you can find an asset at a lower market value and kind of like do a fix and flip and unlock some value, you're very dependent on the market value.
Right.
The market value is not something that you can really control. It goes ups and down all the time. It's trends. On commercial real estate, it's really based on the cap rate. So it's very easy. It's very simple on paper because if you lower the expense or you increase the income, automatically you force some appreciation. So I think it's something that you can scale more easily because that's where I'm coming now. Like, would you say that in your fix and flip business or even in your wholesale business, do you think in those industry there is a selling? Because I feel like in some industry it might be the case in syndication or in commercial real estate in general. The sky is the limit. You have some investors that have billions of dollars worth of real estate. I feel like we will never see $100 million wholesale business. Fix and flip, it's the same thing. I feel like at some point you're kind of capped on your resources. You can't manage 100 flips per month. Like
Yep.
it's going to be too much. What's your opinion on that?
I agree. I don't think these are exitable businesses. I'm sure people have exited these businesses in the past, and I'm sure more people will find a way to do it, but it's not the norm. They're very dependent on you, right? Even though to a certain degree you could have your wholesale business run without you in the day-to-day. Same thing with the fix and flip business, but it's not sellable, right? There isn't that exit multiple, and I agree with you 100%. Even syndication. In syndication, they teach you get really good at one thing, right? So you could either bring the deal You could be the acquisition guy. You could raise capital for the deal. You could be the manager for the deal, etc. There's many different ways for you to get a piece of that pie. But okay, let's say I specialize in finding deals. What happens when I stop finding deals? The 3 that I have in the pipeline or the 4 that I have in the pipeline are going to be exited year 4 or 5 or whatever. I have no control of that because I only have 10% for bringing the deal to the table, or 15, 20%. Now, all these reach their exit. Where's my business? It's gone.
Yeah.
That's why I like the model of me controlling the multifamily. So year 5 comes along, my investor's money is promised back. Hey, you know what? You could either reinvest it with me, or I'll go raise new capital and I'm gonna refinance it. I'll keep it. It's up to me ultimately.
Yeah, I can see it. I mean, I see the value in being focused on one niche. If you're very good at raising capital, well, you should just
Right.
raise capital and find a good operator. But I think on a syndication, the sweet spot is really being the operator, because then you can refinance and you can keep control of the
Correct.
asset. So yeah, I really think the value is probably there. Let me ask you something on this wholesaling. So we touch base on such topic as nationwide wholesaling and all those things. And I understand that you're really focused here in Florida. What's your take on this debate that we have sometimes in the industry about having your team in office or having this fully virtual model? What does your company look like today?
My company is definitely a hybrid. I think the virtual model works everywhere except acquisition.
Mm.
I think the acquisition team, it's a very emotional business, right? You're crashing into walls every day, man. You're getting 100 no's for that one yes. So you need the guys or gals, you need the acquisition team to kind of create this bond. You want them alley-ooping deals to each other. You want them in the office in a high energy environment where they could feed off of each other. I don't think it's the same when you're working alone from home, or so I kind of like having that boiler room vibe. So my acquisition guys are in house. I have right now 3 acquisitions. My T guy is also in house, and me at the office. Well, and my business partner also. So we're a 6. I also have my contractors. They share a piece next to us in the office. We also store all our materials there. We got a pretty big office. And then everyone else is virtual on my team. Pretty much in Venezuela, the only person virtual in the States is my COO. She runs all my marketing, systems, etc. She's actually in San Francisco.
Okay.
And she works Miami time. So she's waking up at 6 a.m. for the morning meetings. And
Oh wow.
yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. So you were talking about Venezuela. Is your team in Venezuela fully virtual? They're all working from home, or do you have an office space there?
Everyone works from home. I just got to make sure that they have high speed internet. If they don't have it, we figure out a way to get it to them. But yeah, everyone works from home.
Okay. So talk to me a little bit about this choice to, find virtual team in Venezuela, because, in the industry in general, everybody has this tendency to go straight for, Philippines or India or edging like a bunch of different countries. Why Venezuela?
So I was born in Venezuela. I was, I don't know, 9 months old when my family left Venezuela and they came to the States. I was one of those fortunate ones that left way before Chavez even became president and the whole dictatorship, blah, blah. So I got lucky that we exited that pretty early. However, I still have family over there. Some, not much, but some. And my partner, he's like an uncle. No, he's my uncle. So
He's like an uncle, or is he?
so my mom's cousin's husband, I don't really know if that's an uncle.
Okay, that's an uncle. Let's call it an uncle.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So he's like, I know this guy in Venezuela. He's really good. He could probably help us find cold callers.
Mm.
Because I was tired of hiring Mexican cold callers from this other company. I basically wrote down everything I didn't like about the service I was being provided. And I said, I'm going to open my own thing in Venezuela. I could probably get away with paying them less than what they pay in Mexico, and it'd still be a fortune. My cold callers in Venezuela make more than doctors in Venezuela. So we reached out to this one guy who's my uncle's friend, my business partner's friend, and he's like, "Man, I'll recruit people for you. I'll help you manage them. You just have to teach me. I have no idea what the hell we're doing here." So I'm like, "Perfect. Don't worry about it. I'll take care of all the training." And he started recruiting people. We started with five people, and yeah, we started putting systems in place so that I could be as detached as possible from the call center, even though that is my company pretty much. It's my operation. I only meet with them once a month, and I see KPIs twice a month when I pay them.
So
So
aside of being born there in Venezuela and having like family member there, which kind of like facilitate this hiring and structuring your company there. Do you see any difference between a cold caller from Venezuela and a cold caller from the Philippines, for example?
yeah, the accent is a lot more digestible when it's an American based
Yeah,
cold caller. I strongly believe that.
especially
Um,
here in Florida. I mean, in the
yeah.
southern kind of states,
You also
everybody's
need,
used to.
yeah, you need the bilingual. I think the bilingual aspect is huge down here in Florida,
Oh, so you mean like you have a lot of
Spanish leads.
sellers that are going to your call caller are going to switch right away. Like they
Right.
start the conversation in English, and if they hear that someone speaks Spanish, they're going to just switch and keep the conversation going in Spanish.
Correct. My acquisition managers as well. Actually, the a deal that we closed yesterday, full Spanish.
Oh,
The whole conversation was in Spanish. A deal in Miami Gardens. So
that's
I
interesting because I was thinking about the accent, and of course, like it doesn't shock anyone here in Florida to have someone with a
right.
Spanish accent, but it's true on the acquisition side as well. You have a lot of sellers, especially in Miami, that might not even speak a word of English. So
Hmm.
it's really valuable to have your entire acquisition team speaking Spanish.
I don't know if that accent will be harder to get across, maybe in a state like Ohio, or I don't know, in these Midwest states where we don't have many Hispanics. I
Yeah.
don't know if maybe there won't be that much of a difference between the Egyptians or Filipinos with
So
the
so I did try over the years like different technique in different states. I
Mhm.
had like colors from Colombia, from Philippines, and from Egypt. Egypt was really the good median for me because they have this capacity. They have a way better accent than me. They're able to kind of like block their accent somehow. Filipinos, like I had some very good call colors. I think from the feedback that I got, the problem with Filipinos is that for decades now, companies in America have been using Filipinos for telemarketing. So you receive phone calls probably every day from solar company,
Mhm.
insurance company, and we're all Filipinos. So I feel like it's kind of
Easy to pick up.
yeah, and I feel like Americans are kind of like it's a reflex, Now
Right.
they hear the accent right away, like something tick. Oh, it's going to be a sales call, so they're kind of defensive, as opposed to someone from Latin America where they might not, like have
Mm.
the same block right out of the gate. So uh, that would be the difference. Another thing probably is a time zone in Philippines, like they have to work on night
At night,
time.
yeah. That's tough.
In Venezuela, I would assume that it's probably. I think in Colombia they have 1 hour of
I think
difference, so
it's an
it's
hour
probably something
difference.
similar. So they're on the same time
Hmm.
zone, right?
Yeah, that's important. I guess that's a big one that I didn't think about.
And what would you say about the culture there in Venezuela? Because I've always been impressed by my team members in Colombia because they're really like almost raised in the American culture. Like they watch movies in English.
Yeah.
They are really like true fans of this American culture, and so I feel like it's kind of something. It's kind of an asset when you talk to sellers here in the U.S. or American clients because they're able to connect, they're able to relate. Is it something that you experience too from your callers in Venezuela?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, these guys, they're watching movies in English, they're listening to songs in English, they're watching the Super Bowl, they're watching the NBA finals. These are all things that we use to build rapport. And I've heard my Venezuelan cold callers talk to clients and ask them, "What about the Dolphins game yesterday?" So that's great. I don't think that's easy to teach when you're in a completely halfway across the world, different time
It's
zone.
very difficult.
Mm.
It's very difficult. And I back in the day when I was really heavy on wholesaling, I had a sales coach in house, so I really tried to train people from Philippines and different country to be in a closer position. And I can totally connect with what you were saying about having your acquisition guys here in the US in office. Um, because even though we're doing like almost like a virtual office on Zoom all day long and training and everything, it's just not the
It's
same
not the
thing.
same.
You
Yeah.
you can't teach that.
Yeah.
It's one of those parts that you need to keep here in house. Very interesting, man. So tell me a bit more about the other thing that you have going on, because I met you at a real estate event that you were doing in Fort Lauderdale, and then a few months later I see you running events in Miami as well. So talk to us a little bit about all of that, like this community that you're building.
So as you start trying to scale in this business, you understand very quickly that connections and getting your name out there is extremely important,
Mhm.
right? So we started off doing some meetups in my office over a year and a half ago. That turned into a company of its own called REI Events. We now have a meeting at the beginning of the month, the first Wednesday of every month. We have 150 to 200 attendees. That's always in Miami. The next event's actually going to be at the Wharf, very popular spot. And yeah, we expect to have 200 people at the next event. We've been able to lock in some very good venues because of that. This is all networking. It's like go out there, have a good time with
Mhm.
people that are also in the real estate space. So that's a really cool vibe. That's REI events, first Wednesday of the month. I've met some great people through there. I've gotten some great deals brought to me because people now see me as, front and center in front of 200 people saying, hey, thank you for coming to the event. I'm a buyer. It's an opportunity to meet 200 people at once.
For
So
sure.
that works out great. Those events are running pretty much on them by themselves. And now I've ventured into doing the education side of it. I miss and understood how the education side worked, and it's so fun and rewarding that I'm enjoying it thoroughly. This is the first year that I'm into the education side. I teach wholesaling and fix and flip in English and Spanish. So the Spanish community has actually reacted incredibly well. We've had very good reception, and yeah, we're running workshops, mentorship programs, free meetups. So a lot going on in that space, and it's been incredibly fun since we started.
It's very interesting because I through the REI Tribe podcast, I interviewed a lot of guests that are actually now in the coaching business, coaching industry, and most of them were very successful real estate investors, and they're
Hmm.
telling me now that they kind of reached a cap at some point where money was good, like they were running a very successful business to the point that money wasn't an object anymore, and they kind of lost a little bit this passion.
Hmm.
And in the coaching space, they found a lot of fulfillment in helping others, sometimes even more than just making money. Being able to see someone that is just getting started, or bringing someone from 2 deals to 5 deals a month, like it's something very fulfilling.
So people think, oh, I mean, you're full of shit. You're not doing it because it's fulfilling, but it truly is. And this is an exercise that I did with Sharper Business Solutions. I hired them to come in and give me some consulting for my wholesale business. And back to the legacy thing, right? I I have a need that I didn't understand. I have a need to impact other people's lives because that has a lot more lasting impact, right?
Hmm.
It says a lot more about Henry Camejo than making $30,000 on a flip. So I'll receive more fulfillment from one of my students going out there and changing their life through real estate than me going out there and making a little bit more money on flips. And that's true. And I think that's how you build a name for yourself. That's how you build legacy. So it all goes back to my why changing a couple years ago. And I think the education is doing a lot for that. So I'm having a really good time with it this year.
Absolutely. And I can totally see that, because you're at the stage now in your life and in your company where of course you want to make money, of course you want to do many deals, but one deal is not going to change your life at this
Hmm.
stage. Why one deal can really impact the life of someone that is
Right.
just getting started. So I can totally see this side. Now going back to the events, like, do you think it's something that you would advise to someone getting started? Like, don't just like spend your evening at home. Like, just go out there, go to real estate meetup, and please don't be the guy at the end of the room, like
Right.
quiet in a corner. Like, go introduce yourself, go shake some hands, and make some relationship, because it's a relationship based business, right?
Absolutely. And look, I mean, I go to networking events every week. I'm the one hosting them, but I still, even when I'm not,
Yeah.
I'm supporting my friends. I'm supporting people that I've met in networking events. I make it a thing to at least twice a year go out of my way to a big event. So
Hmm.
I'm actually in July. I'm going to Ryan Pineda's WealthCon. That's one of them for the year. I also want to go towards the end of the year to Ohio to visit my boy Terry Summers. So all these events, I'm just trying to participate always in as many as I can because you have no idea who you're going to meet and you have no idea who you're going to shake hands with. I will also say this: I've had conversations where I've learned from people that are on their first deal, same way that I've had conversations where I've learned from people that are on their thousandth deal. Don't ever underestimate the power of a conversation, whether it's with somebody that's just starting out or whether it's somebody where you want to be. There's always something to learn.
No, absolutely, absolutely. And I think that's a gem here, and that's something that I always say, I read a lot of books. I'm not right now. I'm quite busy, so I don't read as much as I used to do. But I used to read one book per week,
Wow.
and on every week, on every book, I'm always looking for the one gem. It's
Hmm.
not about capturing every single information in the book, but I'm always thinking, even if I find one valuable piece of information, and it's the same thing in a conversation that you would have with anyone, if I find one piece of information that I can take back home and implement in my business, then it would be worth it. And so I totally agree with that, man.
That goes for everything. I that's the same mindset that I have when I go to these events. It's if I come back with one thing that I could implement in my business and it changes the way that we do things, it was worth it. And I'll give you one time I go to this event in Arizona and my one takeaway was I need to buy everyone stand-up desks. The vibe in the office completely changed when I got the whole
Really?
sales teams and myself stand-up desk. And that was my one takeaway from visiting. I visited Carlos Reyes' office in Phoenix, and everyone
That's
had a stand-up
amazing.
desk. And I was like, you know what? This is my takeaway.
That's amazing. Yeah, it's a blessing and a curse sometimes, because my team is sometimes very upset at me because I'm going to read, like, a few weeks ago. I read the three books of Russell Brunson of ClickFunnels,
Hmm.
and I learned a lot about sales funnel and copywriting and all of that. And so I came back on Monday and I was like, oh, okay, so I changed that, I changed that. And sometimes my team is upset at me because it's very
It's too much.
confusing because I
Yeah.
changed a lot. But I think it's part of this kind of like entrepreneur and visionary mindset. We have tendencies to like break everything and rebuild
Right.
every few months. But yeah, it's definitely interesting to go out there and meet different people, and those networking events. Honestly, it's a lot of value, and I mean, almost everybody that I had on this podcast that became good friends over the year, almost everybody I met at meetup. I met you at your meetup in Fort
Right.
Lauderdale, but another one of my friend was going to and told me like, hey, come at this meetup with me. And I was like, why not? I'm going to meet some new people. It's always interesting to make some connection. Most of the people that I had on this podcast I actually met at meetups. And so that's why I'm always like, don't just sit in the back of the room, really go make some connection, and you never know, where it's going to bring you.
Yeah. Be intentional about the connections you guys make and put yourself out there. People underestimate the power of putting themselves out there.
Absolutely. So talking about that and talking about, running all those meetups and everything, You became kind of like an authority in the market here in Florida. What would you say is like the benefits of like building a brand, like building really a name for yourself in this space?
I mean, the amount of deals that I get, you know, pass in front of me now compared to before, when I didn't know the amount of wholesalers, I didn't know the amount of realtors, investors, etc. in the market. That changed completely, and that's number one, right? The more deals you see, the more opportunity you have to make money. Another thing is being able to call people for any type of problem that you have. You know,
Mm,
if I'm running into a problem now in my business, before I didn't know who to turn to. I didn't have the support group. I didn't have the friends. I didn't have the connections.
for sure.
Now I have, I could call my lawyer Saturday at 6 p.m. He's going to answer the phone. I could call a friend who's been through this. I could get advice from people. And that support that I've gotten from the people that I've met is kind of what I want to give back. And it's what I want people to build through the network that I'm trying to provide with
Mhm.
all these meetups and all these events, right?
Absolutely. It makes total sense. And just one thing that I want to say though, it's I don't want the audience to be confused. It's not. It's a little bit like the first deal that you did, when you show the value. You didn't went about asking for money. You show the value. You show an opportunity. And it's the same thing to this day. It's not Henry going on stage and being like, "Hey guys, send me your deals." It's now
Right.
you're out there. You're an authority in the marketplace. You provide value to a lot of people. You provide value to your community by organizing all of that. So even though you're not doing it for that, automatically it comes
It
back to
comes.
you
Yep.
because, of course, when they're going to get a deal that fits your buy box and flip, you're the first person that they're going to think about, right? So it's really that like people have this tendency, I receive, and I'm sure you receive a lot of them too, but I receive sometimes some DMs where they're just right. Oh, can I pick up your brain? And they send me 20 questions. And I'm like, dude, that's not the right approach at all. So
That's disrespectful.
yeah, yeah.
And I love that you're saying that because you're talking about leading with value.
Hmm.
And that's very important. There's a right way to approach people, there's a wrong way to do it. Yes, we're putting ourselves out there so that people come up to us, but not, yeah, don't come pick my brain, go pick your nose, like my friend Will says. But lead with value. Hey man, I have this deal, this is what's going on, I would love for you to take a shot at it, or would you
Hmm.
like to partner up on this deal with me?
Yeah.
Would you? And I think right before the call, you heard me on the call with the student.
Hmm.
I was coaching him through what he needed to do because we're going to partner up on the deal and we're both going to make money on it.
For sure.
It was a deal that otherwise it was a dead deal. He couldn't find this buyer. He had no way of making it work. I was able to coach him through it, and now we're both going to make 10K from 0 to 10K each. That's a great day. But he led with value. He came up to me. He's like, Henry, I'm having a hard time with this. I would love your feedback, and I would love to give you first dibs on this deal.
Absolutely. And I think, obviously if I had to give an advice to someone that is just getting started, I would say instead of going the way I did and learning everything from scratch, and it took me years to get there. Uh, I would definitely find a coach and follow their
Mm.
blueprint. But then some people are going to be like, yeah, but I can't afford the cost of a course or something like that. And in this case, what I would say is like, instead of asking, just go work for someone. Find someone in your market that is, a wholesaler with an already established business, and provide value. Bring in deals. Ask him to follow his step, but not just like, hey, can I shadow you for a month? No, hey, I have this deal, can we do it together? So I can see how you would structure it, how you would do it. And it's really bad. It's really leading for with value. It's the difference between someone that is going to come to you and asking for help but providing value on both sides, and someone who's just going to ask and take without anything in return.
That's a great point. And no, the only way to lead with value is bringing a deal. There's many other ways too. You know, one thing that we are restrained on is time.
Mm-hmm.
If you're just starting in the business and you have time, okay, that's your asset. That's
Sure.
your value. You have time, you have hustle, you have, you know, the the openness to go to work. Perfect. Lead with that.
Mm-hmm.
How can I be of value to you? Or get creative. There's many ways to provide value and get what you want than just bringing a deal to somebody or bringing money to somebody or something like that.
No, absolutely. Well, man, thank you so much for being here on this podcast. I think we really provide a lot of value for the audience. So, thank you again for your guidance and everything that you shared today. Let me ask you first: is there any like parting words that you want to leave the audience with, and then where can people find you, man, if they want to get in touch with you?
So, key to my success: be a doer. Don't get stuck in the analysis paralysis phase. Take extreme action. Go out there and do. Fail your way to success if you have to, but go out there and do it. And yeah, I appreciate it. You having me on the podcast. I love these kinds of things. And you guys can find me on Instagram. That's where I'm most active, at Henry Lee 2, Lee, Lee, Henry Lee, and the number 2.
I will drop your information in the description below. You were talking about your coaching program and your event. Can you tell us where people can find information about it?
Yeah, if you guys are interested in coaching either for the wholesale or for the fix and flip, by all means, you could DM me on Instagram, and we'll guide you to the right place, whether that be wholesale, fix and flip. We also have all courses available in English and Spanish, so feel free to reach out. And yeah.
All right, sounds good. Well, thank you, man. I really appreciate that, and we'll see you next time.
And hard, and you aiming for the 7 figures. Hear from the experts who know how to deliver. Success stories, plenty advice. Time for you to rise. REI Tribe, yeah. Real estate agents to investors. All my entrepreneurs, time for you to check this. Johan Direct, he's getting it started, man. From running businesses to digital marketing. Hey, REI Tribe. REI Tribe. Let's go.